Okay, so this is good. Let me set to, well, you know the drill, Joe. I'm so happy to be with you today. And I was amazed that this section is so related to you. So for me, this is a really nice adventure to enter the next chapters and talking to you and connect with you so many times. So good, ready to go?
Okay.
Perfect. I'm going to begin the configuration of the live streaming. Okay. And go live. We are ready to begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new edition of Open Innovation Thursday. Happy Open Innovation Thursday to everyone. We are once again discussing this marvelous book, the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation. Today that I'm in my office, I can show it, and you know it's not a travel edition, so it's quite a good book. It's already available in ebook. And we've been exploring already for 18 weeks what each of the chapters of the book. This has been an amazing journey. I'm so happy. I feel very privileged to have this opportunity to discuss every week just for 15 minutes with each of the authors of the chapters about the chapters of the book. Last week, with chapter number 17, we finished section 3, and now we are beginning section 4, which is a set of 5 chapters. The section 4 is called Part 4, new networked forms of open innovation. This is the block we begin right now. And it begins with chapter 18, but we are switching the order of the review of these chapters. Next week, we will review chapter 18. And today, we are reviewing chapter number 19. It's called Healthcare and Sectorial System of Open Innovation. And the author is Joel West, none other than him is together with us. Welcome, Joel. How are you today?
Great. It's morning here, but obviously there it's evening. So glad we could schedule this in.
Where are you connecting from, Joel? I know I asked you that the last time, but just to make sure today.
I live in Oceanside, which is a suburb about 50 kilometers north of San Diego.
Oh, that's amazing. Very, very nice. Well, all the way to San Diego, we have already many people connecting from the US, by the way. So you have people in your time zone. I'm connecting from Bilbao, and I'm very happy to be chatting with you today. Just for those who are connecting for the first time, my name is Marisol Menendez. I'm an open innovation practitioner and enthusiast. I'm authoring one of the chapters of the book as well, and I'm so enamored with the open innovation framework and concept that I'm enjoying so much these conversations every week. And Joel, for those who haven't met you in the past chapter, can you make a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. I'm Joel West. The background we have here is Hildegard College, which is a startup college in Orange County, California, that I'm working at. But previously is at Keck Graduate Institute, a biotech institute, research institute, and teaching institute. And I got started in open innovation by doing the first open innovation book in 2006 with Henry Chesbrough and Wim van Haverbeke. We did a sequel in 2014. And this idea of network form of open innovation was actually one of my chapters in that book. And so when we were laying out this book, we thought, well, there are enough different network forms of open innovation, and it's an important emerging area of innovation research that we thought we should put them all together into a group. And then, of course, I'm fortunate to be one of the 4 editors of this book here, the Open Innovation Handbook.
And you are editor of the book. as well.
Well, one of four editors, yes.
And
Yes.
the 4 editors. And so this is a big adventure. And we already reviewed with you the first chapter you presented, you are author of. It's chapter
Yeah,
number
chapter
5.
the one with Marcel
A
Borchers.
multi-level framework, chapter number 5. And now in this part, by the way, you have 3 participations in these next few chapters, and that's very interesting. And today, I'm looking forward to this session because we are talking about the connection of science-based sectors and open innovation, which I think in itself is such a wonderful topic to touch, and specifically related to the healthcare sector. So can you let us know a little bit about why you had this idea to create this chapter? What's the general objective of this chapter?
Well, there are 2 objectives of this chapter, and one objective was that, and I'm a firm strategy person. That's been my entire career. One of the strategies is innovative firms. And one of the things I find interesting is looking at entire industries or sectors, because different firms making similar products compete with each other, and some of what they do is similar and some of what they do is different. So from a strategy standpoint, it's kind of interesting not to look at, say, an Apple, but all the computer companies or all the cell phone companies, and similarly, not just Facebook, but all the internet service companies. And so it turns out that there's a long, rich literature, a European literature by and large, Franco Malherbe and many of his co-authors, of what's called the sectoral systems of innovation. A little bit done in the US with Maury and Nelson, but it was mostly in Europe. And it's basically what do we learn by looking at the common characteristics and dynamics of innovation and competition and supply relationships and so on in a given industry. And it's a very rich literature. And I think it's long overdue for that to be brought to open innovation, because what I'm trying to do in this chapter is to show how open innovation works across an entire industry or sector. And I chose healthcare, one, because it's a very interesting industry for innovation. It's been studied a lot for innovation. But second, it really demonstrates all the different pieces that you might see in an industry in terms of relationships between firms in an open innovation standpoint that might not necessarily be as present in, say, automobiles or food or software industries like that. So I think that by picking this particular industry, we can kind of demonstrate the sort of relationships that might be seen. And I'm hoping that the framework will be useful for people if they choose to study patterns of open innovation in other industries and sectors.
I'm very interested in this sector as well for the relevance it acquired since COVID, for example, for instance, no? But also because of all the new trends that are here. And as you say, it's a good representation and way to learn for other sectors, no? So for me, as a practitioner, it has very strong appeal. Also because the relevance of science in the creation of this sector, I think is another interesting element. So let's dig into the chapter. What do we have to learn, and how does what does it is about? No, let's get into detail.
Well, yeah, I tried to, having written in open innovation for 18 years, something like that, quite a while. I tried to bring many different ideas of open innovation together in the chapter so that people would see how these ideas fit together. And so one of the places that I start is the chapter 5 that Marcel and I wrote from the book that we based on work we've been doing for a while, where we ask, well, if you're talking about open innovation, you're really talking about the idea of separating the sources of innovation from the commercialization of innovation. That goes back to TIS 86. But in the healthcare, the sources of innovation, the technology, might come from a corporation, but often it comes from a university or a nonprofit research organization, such as a Fraunhofer in Germany, for example, or a government laboratory. And so, yeah, I mean, these innovations are commercialized by firms, typically, although not always by large firms. But the source of innovation are much more diverse. And so you see this idea that the innovations may be created one place and commercialized another way is a very common thing to have happen in the healthcare sector, and in the way that in a lot of industries that it's not common. So that was kind of one of the fun things to do. And I was able to find some secondary data to talk, for example, about who had the most patents. And so there were a couple of medical device companies, Medtronic and Johnson & Johnson, had the most patents. But next was Bayer AG, which is, of course, both a chemical company and a healthcare company. And then a number of universities, University of California, MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and Hoffmann La Roche, which is interesting not only because it's a large pharma company, but also because it has other aspects of healthcare products like medical devices and diagnostics. So overall, I was able to, on one hand, show the kind of the sources of biomedical related patents, and then just using some Standard & Poor's data, who are the largest players in the pharmaceutical company in making healthcare equipment and making biotechnology, therapeutics, life science tools, and so on. And so it's very interesting that essentially, even though you do have some very large firms, say in pharma, they're really, in an absolute sense, not one of the largest generators of biomedical inventions, of patents. And so it's just kind of, in some ways, it's offering a very suggestive way of how people might study the sources and the commercialization of technology in an industry or a sector, and how they're not necessarily the same. And I would hope that in other scholars going forward might be able to come up with much richer and more precise data to show some of these patents. Because I did an attempt, for example, to show where, if all these patents are being generated by MIT or University of California, where do they get commercialized? And that of course would have been a fascinating study. I was just trying to show the broad scope of innovation, creation, and commercialization in this particular sector.
I just want to maybe emphasize one or two things that you are saying that I think it's also very important from the practitioner side. First of all, in this sector in particular, but in every sector, we have many players like government, research centers, institutions, of course, the corporations and the customers who are part of this dynamic of bringing forward the innovation and getting it into the market, no? So what's the chain for the value capturing of this process of innovation is very nature, in its very nature is very collaborative. But also the patent, as you were saying, I think following the trace of who has the patents and how they are being commercialized show us a very nice simple way to understand. Well, simple, I don't know, but it's a way to understand the trip that has an innovation from creation, from inception to market, no? And the number of players who are part of this market. Very interesting.
Well, and that's a great setup actually for the next point I wanted to make. And with that, I'm going to put the one figure from the book chapter on the screen, because essentially there are multiple types of actors in this industry. And for simplification, I kind of aggregated universities and nonprofit research organizations into one category. And I do a distinction between large incumbent firms, the Pfizer, the Merck, the Sanofis of the world, and then the new startup firms, because particularly for biotechnology, but also to some degree for medical diagnostics and devices, you have a lot of new firm entry by firms that come up with a clever technology that can create an innovation, but may not necessarily be able to commercialize it. And so oftentimes what you'll have is these startup firms will generate technology, for example, and then maybe it'll be acquired by an incumbent firm, or maybe they're collaborating on research with an incumbent firm, or maybe they'll license to an incumbent firm. And similarly, universities aren't going to be acquired by a firm, but they will license technology to firms, and they may do sponsored research for a firm, as the work of Marcus Perkman has shown so well. And so basically, I'm just kind of showing these three kind of major type actors of the universities, the startup firms, and the incumbent firms. And typically, a lot of these startup firms are being formed by a university professor who has a cool technology. Obviously, the university can't bring it to the market. So the professor's doctoral student will go create a company. like Genentech, for example, the first major biotech company in the world was formed by UC San Francisco professor Boyer in partnership with a venture capitalist. And so in it, so we have these three types of major firms, organizations, and then we have these R&D consortia, which Paul Olk and I have studied for the last 10 years, starting with our NSF grant. And so sometimes there's cooperation where, say, the university consortia will be, say, trying to research the basic science for Alzheimer's, for example, or for cancer diagnostics for a particular type of mutation that generates a propensity for a particular type of malignancy. And so essentially, these are the sort of the four. It's a simplified version of the relationships. But again, I wanted to get people to think about what are the different actors? Can we generalize about kind of what roles these actors play? And so typically, incumbent firms are not out-licensing for technology, they're in-licensing technology. They're spending a lot of money to sponsor research with other partners, and they're acquiring other firms that have been formed. And so these sorts of patterns might be seen in other industries as well. The list of actors might be slightly different. But again, I think this is an important thing that needs to be done in more industries, is to say, what is the overall pattern of open innovation relationships between the different type of actors in the industry? Now, that stylized story is still, there's some nuance within that. So for example, patents play a very, very important role in pharmaceuticals and biotechnology. I mean, they used to say, it's not true anymore, but they used to say one patent, one molecule, one product. And whether that's true or whether now more drugs are coming to market with multiple patents behind them, but the discovery of a particular substance, whether it be a small molecule chemical or whether it be a biologic that has some sort of healthcare benefit, such as Ozempic or the BioNTech vaccine for COVID, or things like that. You have a specific invention that is patented, and that works pretty well for biologics and pharmaceuticals, because basically nobody can make that exact drug. They have to come up with another drug that's somewhat different, and nobody can make that exact drug, and then you can bring that drug to market, and you can have an exclusive for 20 years on it. But for medical equipment are like computers or cell phones or routers or automobiles, where you have a thicket of patents necessary to make a complex assembled system. Cohen, in his study back in 2000, his survey of the use of IP among American firms, notes that in the complex systems business, you can't have one patent that protects a complex system. You have to have a range of patents, and those may be patents that other people have, or you have, or you in-license from universities or whatever. And so even within the healthcare sector, the nature of IP is very different from the sort of the solitary product companies like the pharma products, and the complex systems products like the people making, say, pacemakers or intensive cardiac care monitors or diagnostic equipment for detecting diseases in humans and things like that. So overall, there's that difference even within this one sector. But I would say that the patterns of in-licensing and out-licensing are pretty similar. I mean, the in-licensing tends to be done by large firms and occasionally by spin-off firms being formed to commercialize a specific university technology. Universities are all doing out-licensing. They're not doing in-licensing because they can't commercialize. Small firms, as going back to TEAS 86, that really created the field of innovation strategy. Small firms may not have the ability to distribute a product in 200 countries. And so they're going to have to out-license or partner in order to bring their product to market. And maybe they can bring it to market in their home country or a few neighboring countries, but they can't bring it to market globally. And so they're going to have to out-license until they get bigger. And obviously, as Henry Chesbrough has shown in a number of his papers, existing firms may out-license technology because they spend a lot of money to develop it and they don't see a market for it, but maybe somebody else might have a way to make money off of it. So even large firms may in fact out-license technologies. And this is sort of what Henry refers to as the false negative, that it didn't work for us, but maybe somebody else can find a way to commercialize. Or this is the Rembrandts in the attic is the other,
Yeah.
people have used.
And I like to
So,
call it the circular economy of innovation, that we can just make sure. I have a question just to maybe round up our closure because we're getting to the end. So this sectoral kind of view, what's the relationship that it can have with ecosystem studies and the ecosystem perspective?
Yeah, I've done a lot of ecosystem work, and I think one thing that the sectoral approach can do, it can lay a baseline for what the norms are in an industry or in a sector or for certain types of firm as a starting point for understanding how open innovation might be used in a particular platform or a particular ecosystem. So that's one way. And I think the other thing, of course, is that you might want to be able to use the sectoral approach to study how ecosystem strategies might be different within the same sector. So you might have a norm for the sector, but maybe some ecosystems, for example, the Toyota Motor Company was famous in the 70s and 80s for having a very closed ecosystem of supply where basically most of their suppliers were exclusive to them. And when I was an Apple software developer, most of us were exclusive to Apple, but basically the firms just figured out they couldn't survive with only Apple business. So they had to join the Windows ecosystem as well. Just like most cell phone software companies are in both Android and iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in that regard, the sector might lay down a baseline or a norm or do the groundwork that would make it easier for people doing ecosystem studies to kind of understand what those norms are or what those patterns are.
Oh, Joe, it's so interesting. I think we could keep talking, but I really like the call to action that you are doing with this. First of all, look at the sectorial dynamics and learn how this interaction between the different players and roles how are they working and how we can learn from this sector to other sectors. I think, as I say,
can I have 2 seconds more? Because the 3 things I didn't mention were, 1, the importance of corporate strategy. People acquire innovation by acquiring firms sometimes. The second is the role of collaborative research, which is very much the work that Marcus Perkman has been doing in open innovation and collaboration with universities. And then the third, a very emerging area, which is the role of open science. And obviously, open science is very important in any university-based innovation. But then we have the intersecting the clashing norms between commercial culture or norms or incentives and the incentives of open science. And obviously for open innovation, you're going to see sort of those clashes in those sorts of relationships between institutions that are firmly rooted in the open science or the proprietary commercialization worlds.
This is the perfect conclusion, I think, because it's a call to action, summary of the strength of this chapter. And for me, and I'm sure that for others that we are watching now and will watch later, just jump into the chapter, read it, extrapolate these to other sectors, and there are a lot of opportunities for future research for those fellow researchers. Joel, it's always a delight to talk to you. Thank you very much for spending this time with us. And I think we might have more conversations in the future. I hope so. And in the meantime, I think that we will also meet in San Francisco for the World Open Innovation Conference, maybe this November. I hope so. So
I'll be there. We'll all be there.
Perfect. So we will, and we for sure will speak about what we learned until then. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for putting so much effort into the book. And until the next time. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.